The shoes went on at 7:43 a.m. This was not nothing. The shoes going on was in the private ledger Nadia, kept in the part of her brain that tracked such things, a significant line item. Yesterday, the shoes had gone on at 9:15 and come off again at 9:17, and that had been the whole day. The day before that, she hadn't touched them. The day before that, she had moved them from the rack by the door to the middle of the bedroom floor, so she would have to step over them. So she would have to think about them, so the thinking might become intention, and the intention might become something with shoes in it. It had not, but today, 7:43, shoes on. Laces tied with the double knot she'd learned at age 6, from a mother who said once is asking for it. The kind of thing you say to a child that embeds itself into the operating system and runs forever in the background. A small loop of maternal warning that had outlasted the mother and the childhood and most of the certainty Nadia had once had about what the outside world was actually going to do to her. She sat on the edge of the bed. The shoes were on. This was the first negotiation of the day, and she had won it. Barely, and it was 7:44 now, and the second negotiation had already begun. The second negotiation was with the list. The list lived in her phone, in a notes app she had titled Protocols, because calling it Things I Need to Do Just to Leave My House felt like a confession she wasn't ready to make to herself in plain language. The list had been built over 2 years of trial and the specific instructive failures that came from skipping steps. Every item on it had been earned the hard way. She opened it. 1 shoes tied double knot, check. 2 keys, main set, not spare. Spare is bad luck. Do not ask why. She did not ask why. She had asked why once, 18 months ago, in a session with Dr. Farhan, who wore the same brown cardigan every week and had a plant on his windowsill that was either very hardy or very fake. And the asking why had taken 40 minutes and arrived at an answer that was technically correct and emotionally useless. Her brain had decided the spare key was bad luck. The brain had its reasons. The brain's reasons were above her pay grade. She took the main set from the hook. 3 phone charged above 60%. Below 60% is a problem. Do not negotiate on this. She checked. 71%. The specific relief of 71% was disproportionate to what 71% meant in any objective sense. It meant nothing. It meant she had 11 extra percentage points of buffer between herself and a version of outside that had no lifeline. Her nervous system received the 71% like a glass of water after a long drive. She exhaled something she hadn't known she was holding. 4. Weather, checked the night before and the morning of, both checks required. She had checked at 11 p.m. Partly cloudy, low humidity, no rain. She checked now. Partly cloudy, low humidity, no rain. The consistency between the 2 checks was important in a way she could not explain to anyone who hadn't lived in a body that treated unexpected rain like incoming artillery. Rain meant wet shoes. Wet shoes meant a change in sensation. A change in sensation when you were already running every threat detection system at full capacity was the kind of thing that could fold a walk in half. No rain. Good, 5 eaten something. Not hungry walking. Hungry walking is a trap. She had eaten half a roti at 7:30, just half. Her appetite before a walk was the appetite of someone about to take an exam in a subject they had studied, but did not trust themselves to remember, enough to function. Not enough to feel weighted. She was not a person who could be weighted on a day like this. 6. Tell someone, this one she always did last. This one she always resented. She opened her texts and typed to her cousin Sana, going for a short walk today, just around the block, we'll text when I'm back. Sana would not respond until 10 a.m. because Sana had a toddler and a life and the particular obliviousness of people whose bodies do not require advance notice before leaving buildings. But Nadia had learned through the specific pedagogy of her worst days that the text needed to exist. Not for Sana, for herself, a record. A witness, proof that this walk had been announced to another human being and therefore could not be quietly cancelled and quietly denied and quietly folded into the accumulating pile of things she had meant to do and then had not. The text sent. Read receipt, off. Sana did not need to know the read receipt was off. Nobody needed to know anything. 7. Decide the distance. Commit to it. Do not negotiate the distance at the door. This was the rule she broke most often. The distance had been decided last night, the crack in the pavement outside number 34. She had clocked it once from the upstairs window, with the kind of focused, obsessive precision normally reserved for military reconnaissance. 387 meters from her front gate. A crack shaped like the letter Y, or maybe a fork, or maybe just a crack. But she had chosen it, and it was hers, and it was the finish line, and she was not going to negotiate it at the door. She was not. 8. Acknowledge the feeling. Do not fight it. It is not the enemy. She sat with that one for a moment. The feeling was already present, had been present since she woke up. It lived in her chest, slightly left of center, like a guest who had arrived before the party started and was now standing in the kitchen making everyone uncomfortable. It was not pain. It was not fear, exactly. It was the thing that lived underneath fear, the pre-fear the body's advance team sent ahead to sweep the perimeter before the main event arrived. She acknowledged it. Hello, she thought, at the thing in her chest. You're early. The thing did not respond. It never responded. It just sat there, slightly left of center, breathing. She closed the Notes app. 8:01 a.m. The keys were in her hand. The shoes were on. The protocol was complete. She had eaten half a roti and had 71% battery, and had texted Sana and had acknowledged the feeling without fighting it, and had committed to 387 meters ending at a Y-shaped crack in the pavement outside a house she had never entered and would never enter, and whose crack she had selected purely because it existed at precisely the distance her body had decided was survivable. She stood up. The third negotiation was with the door. The door was not locked. She never locked it from the inside on a walk day, because locked from inside meant needing the key to get back in, and needing the key to get back in meant an extra step between her and inside on the return journey, and any extra step on the return journey was, she had learned, the hard way with her back against the exterior wall of her own house at 2 p.m. On a Tuesday, while the neighbor's gardener pretended not to watch, unacceptable. She stood in front of the door. This was the third negotiation, and it was the one that looked, from the outside, like nothing. If you were watching, and no one was, which was the mercy at the center of Nadia's life, you would see a woman in her late 30s standing in her own hallway looking at her own front door. You would see clean white walls and a coat rack with 3 coats and a shelf with a small plant that was definitely real because Nadia watered it every Thursday with the consistency of someone performing a religious ritual. Because it was because the plant was alive and alive things required. Tending and tending alive things was a reason to be somewhere. You would see a woman pausing. You would not see the negotiation. The negotiation was between the part of her that had tied the double knot and completed the protocol and texted Sana and was ready. Technically, procedurally, by every measurable standard ready. And the part of her that had been running threat assessments on the outside world since approximately 2019 and had compiled a detailed and thoroughly cross-referenced database of everything that could go wrong in 387 meters of suburban Karachi Street. The database was comprehensive. Dogs, specifically the 3-legged one from number 22, who had no aggression but whose sudden appearances triggered a specific cardiac response she had never fully resolved. Motorcycles, not the danger, specifically, but the sound, the way the sound arrived before the source, the way her body processed loud, unexpected noise from unknown direction as a code-red situation, requiring immediate evasive action. People she knew specifically, the kind of knowing that required conversation, required the face to perform normalcy while the body was already doing 17 other things, required the specific exhaustion of being fine in front of someone who did not know she was not fine. People she didn't know this was its own separate entry. Sun angle. She had a preferred sun angle. This was information she had never shared with another human being. The database updated in real time. It was always updating. It had been updating since 2019, and it never stopped, and it never filed anything in the archive, and nothing ever reached the resolved folder, and she had come to understand, slowly and with great reluctance and with Dr. Farhan's help, that the database was not actually about threat assessment. The database was anxiety performing the role of preparation. She knew this now. Knowing it did not close the database, she put her hand on the door handle. The thing in her chest, slightly left of center, leaned forward. She turned the handle. Faced to the threshold, the door opened and the outside came in. Not metaphorically, literally. The air moved. The sound changed. The light shifted from the specific quality of inside light, controlled, boundaried, hers, to the specific quality of outside light, which had no boundaries and belonged to everyone and could not be turned off. She stood in the doorframe. This was not a small thing. This was, in the accounting system, she did not share with anyone, a large thing wearing the costume of a small thing. Standing in the doorframe meant 1 foot potentially in each world. It meant the door was still within reach. It meant she had not yet committed to the full weight of outside, but had opened negotiations with it, had said, "I'm considering you. I have not yet decided." The landing was 3 steps down to the gate. She looked at the 3 steps. The 3 steps looked back. She took the first one. Her foot landed on concrete, and the concrete was solid, and the solid was a small mercy, and she stood on the first step and breathed, and the breathing was not slow and deliberate, and Dr. Farhan approved diaphragmatic breathing. It was the breathing of someone who had just stepped onto ice and was checking whether it held. Short testing. Waiting for information. The information came back. Step 1. Solid. Proceed. She took the second step. The gate was painted green, the specific green of something that had been a different color first and had been painted over without sufficient preparation, so the original color bled through in places, rust red showing through institutional green like a scar through makeup. She had looked at this gate approximately 4,000 times from the inside. From the outside, it looked different. Everything looked different from the outside. This was one of the things about agoraphobia that nobody told you and that she had discovered herself alone. On the specific Tuesday with the gardener and the exterior wall, the inside of things looked nothing like the outside. She opened the gate. The third step brought her through it. She was outside, 8:09 a.m. She stood just beyond the gate and did not move for what was probably 30 seconds and felt like the geological formation of a small mountain range. The street was present. The street was doing everything streets do, existing, stretching in 2 directions, containing pavement and parked cars, and the specific ambient noise of a Karachi morning assembling itself. A pressure cooker somewhere up the block. A child being called inside by someone who did not yet know the child would not come. The 3-legged dog from number 22, not yet visible but already a presence in her peripheral threat map. A zone of yellow alert in the northwest quadrant of her attention. She turned left. Left was the direction of the crack, the Y-shaped crack, the finish line that she had selected with the care and deliberateness of someone choosing a destination they intended to survive. She walked. Phase 3, the 400 meters walking, it turned out, was something her body remembered, even when the rest of her had forgotten most things. This was one of the small, persistent mercies of the nervous system that it had not unlearned the mechanics of forward motion. Left foot, right foot. The pavement beneath her, with its specific topography, its cracks that were not her crack, its stains that were not her business, its particular Sunday morning emptiness that was the reason she had chosen this time of day, with the same strategic logic she brought to everything. Fewer variables, fewer people, fewer entries for the database. She counted the houses, number 38, number 36. Number 34. Not yet. That was the crack house. She would know when she got there. Number 32, with the bougainvillea that came over the wall in a way that was technically the street's problem and practically nobody's problem, and aesthetically something she had thought was beautiful once from an upstairs window, from the safe remove of inside looking out, and was now from here, from this angle, from the outside. Something that occupied space in a way that required her to step slightly right on the pavement to avoid the reaching branches. She stepped slightly right, her shoulder did the thing it did, pulled in, made herself narrower, as though the world required less permission if you took up less of it. She had been making herself narrower in public spaces since approximately age 22, and the habit had calcified into something she no longer noticed, except in moments like this, when the noticing arrived without invitation and sat down next to her and said, "You're doing the shoulder thing." She was doing the shoulder thing. She kept walking. Number 30 had a car parked halfway on the pavement, and she navigated around it with the specific controlled precision of someone who had calculated their clearance before they got there, because she had because she had run this route in her head at 11 p.m. the previous night with the focus of a person planning an extraction. The car was where she had expected it. This small predictability landed in her chest like something warm. She was at number 28 when the motorcycle came. It came from behind her, from the direction she had walked from. The direction of her gate and her green-painted door and her 71% charged phone and her half-eaten roti, and it came in the way motorcycles always came in Karachi, which was quickly and with total conviction and with a horn that was more philosophical position than traffic safety measure. Her body received the sound before her mind processed it. The body's response was immediate and not subtle. Shoulders up, stomach contracting, weight shifting to the balls of her feet in preparation for what exactly? Running. The body did not know. The body did not have a specific plan. The body just prepared, generically and comprehensively, for whatever was about to be required of it, which was the body's fatal flaw. That it treated a motorcycle horn on a Sunday morning with the same readiness it would bring to an actual emergency. The same full system activation, the same everything at once. She stopped walking. She did not run. This was important. Running would have meant the body had won the negotiation, had convinced her that the threat was real enough to flee, and she was not going to give it that. She stood on the pavement outside number 28, and the motorcycle passed, and the sound peaked, and then Doppler shifted into distance and then was gone, and she stood there for a moment in the aftermath of it, her heart doing what hearts do when they've been told there was an emergency that turned out not to be an emergency. That specific. Indignant overtime work of a system that was told to sprint and then was told to stop. She breathed. Left foot, right foot, number 26. The dog appeared at number 24, not the three-legged one, a different dog. A small white dog she had never seen before, new, or recently arrived, or recently emboldened, standing at the edge of its open gate with the specific energy of a dog who had decided that the pavement outside its house was sovereign territory, and all trespassers would be assessed. It assessed her. She assessed it. The dog was approximately the size of a large loaf of bread. It had the face of something that had strong opinions. It was not growling, technically, but its entire posture was a structural argument for growling, head lowered, weight forward, the unmistakable body language of a creature that had not yet decided, but was leaning. Nadia stopped. This was not in the protocol. The protocol had covered the three-legged dog and the motorcycle and the sun angle and the wet shoes and the people she knew and the people she didn't, but it had not covered this specific dog, this specific loaf of bread-shaped opinion with legs standing in its open gate outside number 24 on a Sunday morning at 8:13 a.m., doing mathematics about her. She looked at the dog looked at her. This standoff lasted. She would estimate later, sitting on her kitchen floor still in her shoes, reconstructing the timeline, approximately 15 seconds. 15 seconds is not a long time in most contexts. 15 seconds is an eternity when you are standing 247 meters from your own front door with a pre-activated nervous system and a small white dog conducting a threat assessment on you while you are conducting a threat assessment on it. Then the dog sneezed and sat down and looked away with the specific aristocratic disinterest of a creature who had decided you were, on reflection, not worth the paperwork. Nadia exhaled through her nose. She walked past the dog. The dog did not move. She was at number 22. Nadia. Getting some air. The voice came from across the street. Mrs. Hafiz, 60-something, in the specific floral housecoat that Mrs. Hafiz appeared to own in 17 colorways and wore as both house garment and street garment, with the confidence of a woman who had long since decided that the distinction between these categories was other people's problem. Nadia's face did the thing faces do. It assembled. This was the only word for it, the components of a normal expression, the slight upturn at the mouth, the softening around the eyes, the tilt of the head that said yes, fine, just a morning walk, nothing to see here, came together from their separate storage locations and arranged themselves into the performance of a woman who had simply stepped outside for air, casually. Because that was a thing people did, because outside was just outside and not a managed environment that required 11 items on a preparation protocol and a predetermined finish line and a specific key for the inward door and a text to Sana, who was probably still asleep. "Just a short walk," she called back. Her voice came out even this was its own small miracle. Mrs. Hafiz nodded with the specific approval of someone who had lived long enough to believe that fresh air solved most things. "Good for you," she said, in the tone of a woman distributing minor blessings to the neighborhood. "It's a lovely morning." It was 8:15 a.m. and the sun was at Nadia's preferred angle, and there was no rain, and the dog at number 24 had decided she was beneath its attention, and the motorcycle was 2 streets away, and her phone was still at 71%, and Mrs. Hafiz was already retreating back into her gate with a satisfied air of someone who had done their bit. It was technically a lovely morning. Nadia kept walking.